So I'm going to explain why you may want to use Node Noggin based on the problem that I was trying to solve through the research that I did to try and come up with a particular solution, and I think Node Noggin solves some of these things. So what was the problem or the situation that I was trying to resolve? What I found is that, and this is with students and a community of practice, is that they would be set projects or briefs, and they would often go off and obviously make something, create something in relation to that project or brief, which was excellent. And that would often start with a set of materials. So they would be materials created and gathered by staff to kind of kick off a project. And what I saw, obviously, is during that time that those students would work in groups or work independently, would go and create more materials related to that project or that subject area that would be really interesting. Not only really interesting to other students, but also really interesting to the staff. So I started to think about how could I create a space that was a bit more open for sharing the material and the things that people find through a project or an activity as a community of practice. And that's still something that I'm sort of working on and thinking about a little bit, because what Node Noggin does and what I found out through this activity was that it's not really the materials that are the most important things, it's the conversation and bringing those materials to the visibility of others. And when that would often happen is obviously when you get feedback at the end of a module, or when you do crits, or when you talk in groups. But what we found was that not everyone participates in talking in groups, not everyone will participate in a crit. You have people who are confident and their voices come out and they articulate their kind of ideas. They are well versed with giving recommendations to other students, that kind of stuff. But to begin with, that's not everyone, and often it can take like sort of 3 years of study and getting to know people for you to feel confident in those spaces. And what I found is when we started to use digital tools where there was anonymized kind of an ease of use, that we'd get more feedback, you'd get more commentary, you get more recommendations from that community of practice as they traveled down that road. And so what I wanted to do was create something that got everyone involved in that community of practice, who were all on the shared endeavor of finding something out, of making something, and get them to engage with sharing materials more openly, to give more suggestions, to give more recommendations, and not to replace the in-person conversations, but to supplement and augment that. So what Node Noggin does is it allows you very quickly to have a additional space in a community of practice, in this instance the art studio, where you want to share and comment and critique on ideas in a space where you won't be recognised, that you can be private, and in doing so you not only enable conversation in the room to happen more freely, but you also enable voices who are not as confident to begin with to feel like they can participate, to feel that their voice can be heard and that they can give information and suggestion and critique in a space that's safe. And what we also found, and that's the royal we as I kind of progressed, was that it would actually open up more conversation. So this wasn't about removing the conversation necessarily, but it was about creating spaces for people to feel that they can start that conversation, and perhaps they need to start that conversation anonymously or privately, because they don't want to sound like they're going to say the wrong thing, and they don't want to feel like they're going to be stupid, and they don't want to necessarily look like they might be undermining one of their friends or unfairly criticising their friend's projects, when what they really want to do, and what everyone really wants to do in these situations actually, is to improve everyone else's work so that we all create the things that we really want to create. So this was about creating an additional space that's easy and accessible, and so that's what Node Noggin is. So the next time that you run a crit or a feedback session, if you visit the hosted version of Node Noggin, so this is a version that you can just try out, so you go to nodenog.in, you'll get to this page here where you can create a new microcosm and you can call it whatever you want. And so the great thing about this is you can say to everyone, okay, today we're going to be looking at some work from a students, I want you to chat, but also we've got this space that you can use which is completely private and anonymized, and you can give feedback there, and we're going to call it, Art School Thursday, Monday, yeah? And now on my own device, anywhere, I can add my thoughts and comments completely anonymously, and anyone else that arrives at this Art School Monday microcosm, so they can just do that again by just typing that in, will have this information synchronized to their computer. So there's nothing stored on the cloud, there's nothing anywhere else, but when two or more people are connected, they will then see the thoughts and comments from anyone who wants to put this information in here. So here is all of my comments. Let's just change mine to green so we can see them in the future. And then if I open up another browser, which I will do separately, and visit the same microcosm. So what I'm going to do is, just to make it really easy, I'm going to copy this URL. But again, it's just as simple as typing in Art School Monday and another person. And now if I go on this view here to the spatial view, you can see my thoughts and comments in green. Where is it? Oh, I've got to zoom out. It's over there. Okay. And the other person now has synchronized, so they also see all of your comments, and they can of course add more as they see fit. You should look at. And what we found is that we got more commentary, more feedback, more ideas, and students' projects benefited greatly from tapping into the whole community of practice. And this wasn't to stop people from talking. People could talk and other people could just add. You could do a session where there is no talking, where you're kind of rapidly doing some presentations, but you want to get everyone's thoughts on that. Maybe you don't have the time to take a couple of minutes from everyone, or that you can only take a couple of minutes, but some people obviously couldn't get involved, so they weren't able to put it. They can put those comments into this microcosm, and then the person or the people that are, who want to, who are being critiqued would obviously visit this microcosm, and so long as you're online at the same time, it will synchronize the data between them. And of course, during that session, you just make sure that everyone has an opportunity to have all of those things synced. So yeah, that was one of the things I was trying to solve, and I think I have solved it, and I think you would greatly benefit from trying it in your own spaces.